Is anything off limits?
No. Whatever you feel like talking about. As a matter of fact, you can help us test what's off limits.
Okay.
Joining me today is Peter DeMaria, architect and designer. Welcome, Peter. Thank you for joining us. Tell us, who are you and what do you do?
All right. Good morning, Max, and thanks for having me back here at Cal State Long Beach. I am an architect by trade, but I've morphed into somebody who's become more of a specialized architect who dwells in modular architecture, maybe more than anything else.
Right.
And it's a niche within the field, and I blame it all on Cal State Long Beach Design Department. Spending time here teaching, there's definitely an impact on me personally. You have all the automobile designers and folks like yourself who are working on things that are products very often, or even wayfinding, and all of these get into the psyche of the end user. And sometimes architects are just too focused on those buildings that they forget about the end user. But you're never in that department. You're always thinking about that experience, and had a major impact on me here. And it's something that I've embraced. Sometimes you fight it and you say, why is this happening? Why am I not the traditional guy? And other times you have to say, you know what, let's just let it happen. Let's see where it goes. You surround yourself with these incredibly creative people, and they're all very talented. And it has a positive impact. So I can talk about my history, but I'm like this old guy now, right? And thank God I don't look in the mirror, because I'm reminded that I'm an older guy, right? But I'm a lifelong learner who is committed to I don't want to say innovation, but I get a high from learning, whatever it might be. My son's studying music, and he's got me off on this music tangent now. And it genuinely excites me. So I don't know that I'll ever run out of steam if that's the motivation behind everything I do. That learning just never stops.
That's awesome. What's it like coming back to campus after having taught here and now, being out there in that intersection of architecture and product? What's it like coming back?
Mm-hmm. Well, when I left here, I moved to Austin. And got down to Austin, and I went to graduate school at the University of Texas at Austin, School of Architecture there. And I was pretty fortunate. I was able to teach there. And I was teaching there for about 3 years. And Austin is this wonderful place to be, And that's why I went to grad school there. But then raising a family there, and a very humble place. But Austin is turning into like a mini LA. It drives you a little.
How so? What do you mean?
Well, all these people from LA have moved there.
Oh, okay. So literally a transplant.
And they say, we don't like LA anymore. So you go down there and they say, okay, we want this place to kind of be like LA. They don't leave the sensibility behind. But it's still, with all of that, Austin is just this wonderful place. And there's some really incredible people there who have a profound impact on my life. I had a professor named Larry Speck, and Larry's still at the University of Texas. He was the dean there for a while. And there are certain people in the academic world who really touch you, and he was one of those people. So I got back there, and now I find myself, I get together with Larry, we go have lunch, and even now when I'm commuting back and forth to Austin, I'll get together with him maybe once every 2 or 3 months and have lunch. And he's just this incredible guy, and I didn't find that type of academician in Los Angeles, right? He's an old pro, but he's completely, the lens is off. Never mind look through a different lens. He really cut to the chase on so many things, and he's has a wonderful way about him, and it's always been inspiring to me. So Austin treated me quite nice, but I've been coming back to LA because of work opportunities, and coming back onto the campus especially, things seem to be moving forward here nicely. And not that I was here 60 years ago. I think it was maybe about 7 or 8 years ago, something along those lines. But you can see the progress. Folks like yourself who are embracing an innovation lab and this studio, and bringing in these different points of view, which really dovetails perfectly into my professional world. I appreciate what's going on here. And there's so many schools that aren't doing it.
Yeah.
At some point, they're going to get on board. You're a case study for what should be taking place. So I'm pretty excited about being here.
Awesome.
And it's really cool. But I've got to get out on the campus a little bit to see what's taking place. And I know that your fellow faculty members, I always had a wonderful experience with them, and many of them are still here.
Yeah.
So you're going to see me a little bit more.
Excellent. Excellent. Can you talk a little bit about the kind of work you do with modular and how you see that fusing of architecture and product?
Okay. Very often we are challenged in the world of architecture, and even as human beings, we're very often solving a problem.
Right.
And I go out there, and there was a time in my career, I was a young guy, and the bigger, better project you can get, the more wonderful it was. And I did a project over on the west side of LA that was a 21,000 square foot house for a bachelor. And it had a ballroom, it had 18-car park, it had everything. And to the point where you said, I think I'm going to vomit. I said, this is ridiculous. And I was okay, it's cool for this guy, he loves it. But Peter, you're going to spend your career doing this wildly, immense thing that was so extravagant. And I said no. And then combined with my teaching, we're always looking for how we can solve a design challenge. And sometimes it comes upon us and we're not looking for it at all. And being in downtown Los Angeles, when I started commuting back and forth from Austin to LA, I found myself in the Arts District. I had my own little loft in downtown, and I'm right off of Alameda and 4th.
Oh, that's a great spot.
You travel west a few blocks, and you don't know what country you're in. And you cannot walk down the sidewalk. There are tents everywhere. Your life is in your hands, and it's an unfriendly environment. And then here I am as this architect who had been working for so long on projects that could be built more affordably, faster, better quality. And it's really a solution in search of a problem. And I walked by it every day. And this is what drove me absolutely bonkers. I said, it's right here. You don't have to, I say, reinvent the wheel. I say, here's your challenge. Now let's apply what you have to solve this challenge, because it's a major. In fact, when I was teaching here, I had a student, and I'll never forget this. This young lady was in the studio, and I said, listen, you have to live the design that you've created. You have to really immerse yourself in it so you can understand every facet of it. And so she wanted to design this homeless shelter. She comes in, she misses class one day, comes in the next day, and I'm like, where have you been? And she said, well, I went to downtown LA, I brought a blanket, and I slept on the sidewalk. I said, my dean's going to fire me if they
right.
Sleeping on the sidewalk as part of an assignment here. I said, tell me about this. And she told me.
Live your design.
Right.
But she did.
She took what I said to heart and did it. And my God, I thought I knew what was going on, but she really knew in just one night. So this raises your awareness and say, okay, I've got to commit to solving this challenge, because it's not just at the corner of 4th and Alameda.
Right.
It's citywide, it's countywide, it's happening in every major city in the United States. And if you look across the globe, we've got it easy here. Yeah. We've got 60, 70,000 homeless people or something like that in Los Angeles. But across the planet, I think is 1.4 billion people without adequate housing.
Wow.
And you go, wait a minute, this is a huge problem. You need to get out of your box, Peter. Right, and look at this a little bit more. So with that, if you start designing the Taj Mahal and the Disney Concert Hall and these one-off projects that are wonderful, they're beautiful buildings, right? How are you helping those folks who need the help most? Right. So now I'm not ready to join the priesthood. I'm not that guy. Right? I don't qualify for that one. But as I do have some skills. I do have some ideas that could help a tremendous number of people. So at that point, you say, okay, how do I make this architecture thing happen? Because in school, we're taught very often that the building should have its own identity and all those wonderful things that really create, works of art.
Right.
But there's a segment of society that says, okay, we love the works of art, but I don't want to sleep on the sidewalk. How do I take care of that segment of society? Yeah. So coming here and being involved with the product design, because y'all are designing, a mouse or a computer or glasses or whatever it might be, the production of that's going to be in the millions.
Right.
To help so many different people. And I'm going, no, I can learn from this, because this strategy that exists in the product design world, if I can create this hybrid in the modular, in the architectural world, which results in modular, I said, then I've got to have a chance. So that's what put me on this new trajectory, of really immersing myself in the modular. I had some work where I did supposedly the first legal cargo container-based building in the United States. I did that back in 2004, 2005. And that was really taking an existing product and readapting it to an architectural need. Okay, so I've never been far from what y'all do and that hybrid, but it was easy for me to access it because I had no problem reutilizing, products that already exist. But it is important for you. It's easier said than done, because you have to immerse yourself then in the product development world and understand how that works. And it's a whole different process. Completely different. But I love it. Like I said, I see this exciting hybrid of the two worlds, and I see the benefits that come out of it. And it's just taking off in terms of the industry. Folks that say it's been around for a long time, modular has been around for a long time, but right now the moons are aligning, because with the technology and all those different things, it's making it easier.
Well, for a long time, modular implied substandard, and now modular is almost becoming a new way of rethinking not just standard, but premium in a way, and solving problems in multiple different ways, not just fast and cheap. It's cost-effective ways of making people's lives better.
Got it.
Yeah.
And you're not far from there. They're the perfect example. I grew up in New Jersey, right? And you're in New Jersey, and I'm in an Italian ghetto, basically. Italian neighborhood. Most of the guys my dad's age were either in Second World War or in Korean War. They had a really strong opinion about Asia, right? Sure. And understandably so. I get it. But we lived in this world, and I'm trying to put it all together. And there was a gentleman who sold lawnmowers in the neighborhood. Right. And it was always a Tecumseh, Briggs and Stratton, all these cool, named after an Indian type of lawnmower that's out of Wisconsin or wherever it was. And then one day he showed up, and he has a Honda lawnmower. Oh my, yeah. Well, you thought there was going to be a revolution in the neighborhood, right? And these guys are like, you're a Japanese lawnmower? Are you crazy? What? This is anti-American. They were just really against it, right? And the whole idea of Honda is they broke in with this really small product that was affordable. Right. And over time, people said, hey, it's not a threat. They're actually onto something here. Yeah. And it started to get more popular. Because it's affordable, more people are saying, you know what, doesn't matter to me. It works with my pocketbook. I'm going to do it. The war is over. Leave it behind, okay? And eventually what happens is Honda blossoms into what it is today. And I can tell you the same story about Toyota, and many companies start out like that. It's really a small endeavor, and a consequence of their commitment and their design sensibility and their commitment to a challenge. The consequence of that is it blossoms into something that they could never imagine. Exactly. Right? So, and it's a lesson that I see over and over and over again in the product world, that it doesn't happen in the architecture world. Architecture is kind of a finite science. You design the building and it is done. Somebody might do an addition or a remodel or something in the future, but it's typically hit the end of its rope. Whereas in the modular world, in the product world, you're part of this continuum. You're almost like a musician. You put 10 songs on a CD or an album, shall we say, okay?
Sure.
And
sure.
like 7 of them are duds. But those 3 you're remembered for. And you keep moving forward and you build on that, right?
Yeah.
So you're not going to hit a home run every time, right?
No,
but I can't afford to hit to strike out. But I'm aiming to hit that homer, or really do something fantastic with every project.
Awesome. Peter, can you think back about maybe what influenced you creatively as you were getting into architecture and design?
Sure. Yeah, there's a few pivotal points in my so-called career. when I was in undergraduate school, and it's interesting. My dad says, "You going to college?" And I said, "I'm not sure." He said, "Listen, I can get you a job in the union. I know a couple guys who ran the union, bricklayers and masons and all that back in this Italian part of New Jersey. So you can think of what that led to." So I said, "Sure, Pop." I said, "I'd be in today." He said, "I can get you a job. You just let me know what you want to do." But my mom, who only had a high school education, said, "This year you're going to college." I said, "I am." She goes, "Yeah." I said, "Mom, I don't know what I'm going to study." She said, "It doesn't matter. You just go. You'll figure it out." Right? My mom had no business giving me that advice. She didn't. There was nothing in her that really spoke to her about that. But she was really smart. She was really observant, and she saw. I mean, she was not blind. She learned an incredible amount, and she said, "Get there, and it will unfold for you. You'll see. Put yourself in a great position. Surround yourself with great people. Great things happen." So I went off to undergraduate school, and to make a long story short, I had a few Stuart Topper, a few other people there who were great professors. But then I met a guy named Joe Clinton, and Joe Clinton was a disciple of Buckminster Fuller. Now, Bucky Fuller was this Renaissance man, who was around for, I don't know, I think he was ancient when I met him, okay? And we got to meet Bucky Fuller. After working with Joe and doing all these different projects and working on geodesic domes and all that fun stuff, we got to meet Bucky Fuller out in Woods Hole, Massachusetts. We all took a trip up there. And Bucky Fuller he must have been 80 some odd years old then when I met him. But this guy walked into the room and it illuminated the place. The guy was vibrant. He's had a cane with him, okay? And it was really this visionary of a guy. I've read everything about him. It's like walking in the room and here's Babe Ruth or something like that. Right? You're like, oh my God, I didn't know he was still active. But he was still doing his thing. And he had such a macro view of the world and the planet. I had never seen anything like it. In other words, someone who's embracing environmentalism, a save the planet mindset way back in the 30s and 40s. And here he was, and they were creating the biosphere at that time. They put these 3 or 4 people in the geodesic dome, and they were harvesting fish and living off vegetables for a year. And it was really progressive thinking. And it just blew the lid off of learning for me. And that's when I said, there's just so much beyond this New Jersey existence that I had. And so that was a real pivotal moment. From there, I went on to design school, first year of grad school, and at the University of Massachusetts. And there I realized I wanted to be an architect because everything I was working with was too small in scale. And I ended up at University of Texas. How I got into that school is a real long story, but thank God I got into that school. That really changed everything for me. Went there, got my degree, and then came west. But while I was at the University of Texas, I met some really incredible people who weren't just great architects, but they're just incredible people inside. People you look back to and you say, what would they do? And you use them as examples, and you talk to your kids about them. And so Texas treated me incredibly well. So I think that the academic world, I've been very, very fortunate. I've also stayed attached to it. I've been teaching here at junior college level, came to Cal State Long Beach, and then went on, migrated to University of Texas. And I think that teaching has had even more of an impact on me than my years in college.
Right?
Oh,
wow, yeah.
Because there's this synergy that takes place in the studio, in the classroom, where you have these brilliant students. When I went down to Texas and taught at the UT School of Architecture, I was teaching graduate school. And I have students in there who were decided they didn't want to be a doctor, or they had undergrad, right, in pre-med, or they were theology majors, or they didn't want to become an attorney, they were pre-law. They came this diverse range of brilliant students in this classroom. And we would have these discussions on a Friday. And one of my fellow faculty members, Michael Benedict, who was my first design professor when I went to school, we taught in the same studio. We bring these students around, and it was like, okay, we brought in food, drinks, whatever it was. It's now a rap session. Ask us whatever you like. And these students always will keep you on the cutting edge of what's going on. Because if you don't have the answer, you have to go get it. Okay? And that trains you as the creative person. If you don't know it, it's no problem. Let's go find the answer to this. That continues to feed the creative palette for me. So that impact never leaves me. Yeah. Not that I don't try to educate all my clients, but I do spend a tremendous amount of time understanding what's important to them, because that's typically an inspiration or motivation for a design solution. You know, so I can't. I'm all for education. Big and you know, there's one other thing that happened, and I'm sorry I'm getting long-winded on this. When in our neighborhood, we lived in this Italian neighborhood, and a family moved in, and this had to be 1969, maybe 1970, something like that. A Cuban family moved in.
Right.
And these Italians are looking at this Cuban guy like, what are you doing here? You know,
Yeah.
do you know where you are? Right. And this Cuban fella had 2 kids, he had his wife, and they didn't really even talk to the guy. Well, summertime came and our parents are all working. And where do we go? Down to the local school in the play yard, and we're playing baseball and everything else. Well, who comes walking out like the first day of the summer? This Cuban fella with his 2 kids, he's got a baseball bat, he's got a ball, he's got 2 or 3 gloves, and he comes over and says, you kids want to play baseball. I'm like, is he for real? And everybody's looking at him, right? And now, for those who don't know, Cuba and Fidel Castro was a great baseball player, right? And now Cuba really has baseball in their mind. So he comes out, and before you know it, this guy has herded cats. He's got all these crazy Italian kids in the neighborhood lined up, playing baseball, having fun, and said, can we play again tomorrow? Here, take my glove, Pete, you know, with his Cuban accent, the whole deal. Well, this guy's watching me now. He stays in our neighborhood. He's actually an English teacher at a local high school in the town next to ours and stays in our neighborhood. And he's like a brother to everybody now. And this guy comes in, and while I was in undergraduate school, he comes in, I'm working in a liquor store to make money to get through school. He comes in and he says, Peter, how you doing? And I said, I'm doing great. He said, how's school? And I said, it's going really well. He said, let me tell you, he says, it's going to be challenging. He said, when I was in Cuba, he said, they took me and my family and they put us in a concentration camp. He said, I was eating from a bowl with worms in it. You had to push the worms out of the side. He said, there was a fella who was a friend of mine. He was so wealthy that when the nightclubs closed, he took the entire club, all the people, the band, everybody to his villa, and they continued the party. He said, the last time I saw him, he was driving a cab in Miami. And I said, wow. He said, so remember this. He said, people could take away anything from you. Anything, your clothes, the shirt on your back, your money, but they can never take away your education. You just keep that in mind. That stuck in my head for 45 years. And I know how many people I've shared that with, right? So this is why I've always been a fan of education. I'm always wide open to it. So thanks for bearing with me on that. But I took a trip down memory lane there for a second.
That's great. It wraps into, how indelible impressions are at a young age and how it wraps into how you think and process as you grow. So, is there a particular project throughout your career that taught you a lot by being, even if it didn't succeed, if it was a failure or something like that, but you learned a lot out of it?
Sure. I've been pretty fortunate and got some really innovative projects built. You know, when I look back, I'm going, how the moons aligned and how those projects came to fruition. There was a project that I did I designed in Malibu, and I thought it was the most creative thing that I had ever done. And I was so happy about this project. And I put the project out to bid, and 3 contractors came back, and every one of them was over the budget. And I knew what it cost. I was very close to construction. I knew what the cost of things were. And one of the guys was a real close friend. I said, tell me what's going on. We both know this project should not cost this much. I said, why are you charging this much? He said, because when the economy is good, we have to charge as much as we possibly can. Because when the economy tanks, none of these people here are helping us, giving us any money. He said, so if you guys don't want to pay for this project, everything is so strong, I can go down the block right now to the next project and they'll pay for it. So it's supply and demand. So I walked away from that. The project didn't get built. I still have models of it. I have drawings of it. And it's there as a reminder. Right? And I said, I'm never going to put myself in that spot again where I'm at the mercy of the general contractor who can just destroy the entire thing. It really had nothing to do with, did it really cost this much or not?
Yeah.
It's like, this is what they're charging, and that's it.
It's the going rate. at that
Exactly.
point. Yeah.
So what do? You have to immerse yourself in the fabrication or the construction process to understand it better so that you can keep the reins on that. Well, going in the deep end is going into the product-driven world and going into modular. So that was a project that really was pivotal for me. There are plenty of other success stories that are kind of funny, but they're all fraught with, there's people like to go to the Italian restaurant and they order sausage and rapini.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my God, this is so good. But you do not want to be in the kitchen when they're making the sausage. Nobody wants to see that process,
No,
but you
right.
can enjoy the final meal, right?
Yeah.
So as the architect, I'm in the kitchen very often and things go haywire. But it's your job, like the master chef, to pull it all together and make sure it gets delivered properly. So every project is really a learning experience.
Yeah.
But if there's one thing that's consistent in all of them, it always boils down to people, the clients.
yeah.
That's the critical component in all of it. We can elaborate on it more if you like, but that's the one thing that just never goes away. The technology changes, it progresses, but the people are the ones who unlock magnificence.
What do you think people misunderstand about modular, and what do you think is important to know about modular?
Well, earlier you mentioned, it was kind of synonymous with something that's non-quality or poor quality, right? And it's always been, well, maybe modular, doesn't that mean a single wide or a double wide, and you have this image of Joe Dirt, hanging out in the trailer home, and it's on a crooked foundation and all that fun stuff. And for many years, that is what a prefabricated home was. You delivered it on a truck, and it became, every time there's a hurricane down in Florida, you see these things flying across the landscape, right? I'd ever want to live in one of those. It's the Three Little Pigs. One is built a better quality, so we strive for the better quality. But that modular home thing was the stigma that exists is slowly deteriorating, which is a great thing. And we work in light gauge steel. We do not work in wood. I know the problems with wood, with mold, termites, mildew, fire, all those things. Our projects are exclusively light gauge steel and sometimes heavy gauge steel if it's required. Like we're doing an 8-story building, there's heavy gauge steel in that building. We're doing 3 or 4 fire rebuild homes up in Pacific Palisades. They're all light gauge steel. And these modular homes where the people talk about quality, they say, wait a minute, modular home will build down. I saw the steel all bent and twisted up in the Palisades. It's not fireproof. No, nothing's fireproof. However, if you wrap a steel beam with wood plywood and wood posts and beams, you're creating a furnace. And yes, it will melt. It will bend. I said, but in our projects, we're using something called Structicrete, which is a concrete type of material instead of plywood. We're using Sureboard, which is basically a combination of shear wall with drywall. And they use drywall to fireproof thing, but it's non-combustible.
Right.
So the challenge is we're creating really a jail cell. Right? You don't want the jail to burn down.
Right.
People get out.
Yeah.
So you're creating, or shall I say, a better way to say is we're building a hospital, right? And the hospital catches on fire. The contents within the hospital the drapes might catch on fire. Okay. But once they're done burning, nothing else catches on fire, nothing else combustible. So those are the types of homes and buildings that we've created. So when you're building an 8-story building, the code, the building code and the fire resistance, right, those types of buildings is much different than it is on a single-family home. So we have been working on that, and I've been working on that for a while because I don't believe we're going to solve the homeless challenge with single-family homes. I think density is going to be the challenge, or going to be the solution. So it's something that we've been looking at all along, and when you start to work in light gauge steel, the quality is incredible. And now what's happened is the folks who really want to, what they call flip the buildings, want to just put up the building, sell it, and get out of town, right? Yeah. They all want to work in wood because the wood is so inexpensive. And we're approaching the cost of wood. We're very, very close. The folks who want to build in light gauge steel are saying, I'm going to hold on to the building. And so, well, why wouldn't you build it in wood? Because it's going to twist and turn and termites and all this stuff. I know if I work with light gauge steel, it's going to last forever. Right. My long-term maintenance costs are going to be reduced, and I'm getting it at a competitive price. This is a no-brainer for me. So the market that focuses on what we're doing is growing really nicely. And it's also with these fires that just took place, the fire marshal in the city of LA and the county of Los Angeles, density is a big issue. right? The policymakers all want density. Why? It increases the number of people, increases the tax revenue, all those things that go along with it. And the firemen are sitting there going, okay, we now have 8-story buildings where we had single-story buildings, but we still only have one little firehouse with 2 trucks in it.
Right. Right.
So
The
something's gotta
infrastructure is not there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the potential for disaster is increased dramatically. So the fire marshal has a major influence on how things are constructed,
Yeah.
and rightfully so.
Yeah.
So the quality now is almost unsurpassed. It's
Do
really
you see
great.
that using the steel, but more in a volume production method, is a way to kind of keep that more premium material down to a level where it becomes equal with the standard material, and now you're able to, by virtue of the process you're using, really kind of makes a premium material the new standard.
You're right on the mark with this. Now, when I built my own home in Manhattan Beach, we did it out of heavy gauge steel, and then I supplemented it with light gauge steel walls. And they, what we call stick framed it. They built it the way you build any of that, to bring the studs out there, you cut them, you assemble it, and it's an additive process, right? But in our factory, it's much different. I've got this business partner, Diego Rivera, like the painter, right? Diego went to SciArc. He trained as an architect, but he's never practiced architecture. But the guy is brilliant, okay? He knows light gauge steel like no one on the planet. Now, the scenario I described before, where I was at the mercy of the general contractor and their price structure, okay, I no longer have to deal with any of that. Now, when we're building, unlike my home where we brought, I would go buy the studs from Semco and Dietrich and all these companies, we don't do that. Diego's buying coils of steel, okay, from the steel mill. So that means there's no I'm buying the commodity, right? So no one's marking up the steel. No one's saying, oh, it's going to take me 3 weeks to get you that size joist, or it's a change order if you're going to get a 2x7 instead of a 2x6, right? None of that happens. We have our own roll forming machines. We create every one of those components that goes into our building. Okay, so that's liberating in so many different ways, And what happens is you start to create a system of your own that's easily managed, and you start to understand the nuances of how long it takes to put all of these different components together, right? And it has a ripple effect, and you can't say, okay, I've solved the framing part of it, or I've solved the plumbing part of it. You have to understand this entire envelope and how they all come together, okay, because they're going to impact each other. Typically in light gauge steel, you have a stud and you have a metal screw, and there's a head on the screw that sticks out beyond the stud. And the screws have to be in it. Every stud is 16 inches. And when they put their drywall on, the drywall kind of goes in and out subtly. But no one cares about that. He said, listen, my finish guy will come in and he'll straighten it all out. Well, I don't want the finish guy there. Yeah, I don't want the finish guy. So what do? They create the studs in the track with something called a dimple. That means when the screw is set, the head of the screw is flush with the track. Now the drywall goes on perfectly straight. We just eliminated the finish guy from the trade. I was like, that's not, what's the impact of that in the bottom lines? It's significant. Well, we've done that now with the mechanical systems. We've done that with the roofing. I don't like roofers, right? I mean, they're good guys. They'll go have a beer. You're really down to earth guys are really rough. Yeah. But the roofing stops the project.
Yeah.
No one wants to be there when they're working. They've got tar and all this other thing. Well, we put the roof now in the factory, and we don't have to use any of those systems. We've done the same thing with our plumbing, our electrical. So we kind of re-engineer or reverse engineered traditional construction, found out where all those headaches are, and those are the challenges that we solve to now create this end product that's of superior quality.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah. The steel's just a small part of it, but
Sure.
it's integrated into all of it.
That's great. That's great. Peter, when you're looking forward, a decade out, what do you think is important for designers to be focusing on, whether it comes to how, issues like housing or just in general? What do you see as being, where is design needed?
Okay. Well, I don't think you're going to be able to get away from design in the future. I think it's part of everything that we do. I'm sitting here at a desk. There was a design sensibility behind this, behind the graphics in the room, the computer, the microphone next to me. These challenges are never going to go away. In fact, they're just going to get more complex, I think, because we are living now in a world of, I don't want to call it convenience, but it's technology is making things so easy for us in so many facets of life. We will still have the basic challenges. Don't get me wrong. I still have people living on the street. And that's something that I've identified. But I don't know that I can shackle the designers in the future and say, listen, this is where you want to focus. I have faith that they'll find their own challenge out there. They'll see something the way I don't see it and say, this is a problem. I have a nephew who works in the eyewear industry. And he's come up with this app that enables the labs and the doctors to communicate so that people are able to get their glasses in a far more efficient manner. Yeah. Now, I buy glasses once every 4 or 5 years, but if you do this every day, it drives you bonkers. It's completely inefficient. But he's identified this problem because he was close to the industry, creates this app, creates this service, and has this business now that's blossoming.
That's awesome.
So we all see the world through a different lens.
Yeah.
The key is to help folks, or really to impart that don't be scared to try to solve that challenge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't work from a position of fear. Identify the problem, be pragmatic, and then think outside of the box. In some ways, I like to say, be this radical thinker, and it gets me in trouble because usually you think about a radical, there's somebody down there with a sign banging somebody over the head of some revolution somewhere. And then I go back, if you really want to look at the ultimate radical, right? And I'm not this religious fanatic, but Jesus was the ultimate radical. Okay. This guy comes along and says, remember that eye for an eye thing? No, we're getting rid of that. Okay, wait a minute. This is part of what we've been doing for 1,000 years here. He goes, yeah, and forgive your neighbor, love your neighbor, turn your cheek the other way. All these things. Wait a minute, that's not the way the world operates. Right. And all of a sudden, this guy is saying, I'm questioning everything you've learned. Okay, now, I don't know that I want any of my students to be the second coming of Jesus Christ, okay? I don't know if they can fill those shoes. Right. But there's a lot to be learned from that because as designers, we are forced to look through a different lens. Yeah. If you stay within your own lens, cool. Once in a while, you get somebody who's just so driven. It seemed like Steve Jobs was just on his own mission for whatever it was going to satisfy him, and it works. But Steve Jobs is one in, I don't know how many billion of people come along to do that thing, right? And I think that being outside of that box, I know it can sound like a cliche, you have to live it. You just can't do it once in a while you say, oh yeah, I'm going to be creative on the weekend, then I'm going to go back to my regular job during the week. You have to live it because when you start to live it, it manifests in the things that you never even thought about, right? You'll start to do other things more creatively or start to follow this doctrine that you've set up and you're like, wow, this is great. And it fulfills something that's obviously very important to you. Before you can do it, this is where the struggle is. You're trying to define what's important to me. Yeah. Yeah. And some of us, it gets dropped on us and we don't have a choice, right? And others, we're sitting there going, I'm not sure. So that means let's explore. Right. That's part of the creative process. Let's get out there. And at some point, it's like my mom saying, go to college, you'll figure it out. Yeah. Right? Yeah. It will come to you. You're doing good things. At some point, you will attract other good things. You'll attract that mission, whatever it is. You're doing bad things, I promise you will attract the bad things, okay? Right. So you got to get your head straight, and then you will put yourself in a position to make great things happen. And then you never know where it's going to come from. But when it arrives, you'll go, of course. Here it is.
That kind of leads into my final question is you've had various levels of your career. You've been successful. You've evolved and you continue to strive and be active and push new developments. What does success look like to you now?
That's a very interesting question because when you think about success as this parent, you say, okay, I've got these bills, I've got kids in college, I want to be able to take care of everybody financially, I want to be that macho dad that takes care of everybody and we're all good. And that, that's always there. That's always kind of hovering there. And you say, I've got to take care of it. I have a responsibility as a father to make sure those things happen. From a success standpoint, in terms of in a profession, I don't know that there is a flashpoint or a specific prize or goal. What you do, and maybe I'm a slave to the trade, right? You just continue on this path. And I think that this is, you've got me on this. This is great. Because I don't think of it often.
Yeah.
I'm this guy who says, okay, we're going to go to work and let's get it done. And I focus on my work, and sometimes it's a little bit too much, but I do love it. I mean, I love going to Italy. I love hanging out there. I can get lost very quickly, mentally, physically, and have a really good time there. But I'm on this mission to create things that are going to have a positive impact on our fellow man, on you, and everyone around us, right? Especially my family. So that's a never-ending task, because you're always hoping that things will improve themselves. Now, I'm not the type of guy who goes out and says, okay, we're going to, fix the entire planet. I don't. It's just beyond me. The whole idea of saving the planet and carbon neutral, it's just too far beyond me.
Right.
But there are some things that are tangible that I can impact, and that's what I focus on. And it just so happens that those little local type of challenges are also experienced by people at a regional level and then at a statewide level. And before you know it, what you're doing at a local level has impact on a national level, if not international. Sure. And that's exactly what happened with the cargo container. It was not meant to be this thing that people would be adopting all around the world now as a building block. It was solving a local challenge. And I know if I can do that, then I'll be planting the seed for other creatives to get a hold of it. And then where they take it's just, ridiculously exciting. Yeah. So I just continue on my path, more of this evolutionary process, as opposed to focusing on that one thing that defines success.
Would you say maybe success is the ability to continue doing what you're doing and
grow
into it?
Yeah, because my kids also said, Dad, you going to retire? And I'm like, I don't know what you retire means, to remove yourself, I believe, from something that you maybe don't like doing. Right. Because why would you stop doing it if you like it? Yeah, absolutely. So don't get me wrong, it's hard, it's challenging, I work, but that's my mission, and I'm a strong believer in that. You have to have a mission, a reason to get up every morning. And I've got some incredible clients, especially these people in the Palisades. Yeah, I'm such diversity. They 3 different types of families, but these people have literally come out of the ashes. Yeah, and can speak to me at the table and say, "I want to move forward." Yeah, and you can help. I'm going to go to the end of the earth for them.
That's amazing.
So it's a real metaphor for everything that we do. So all good, all good. Yeah, thank you for asking that question. I'm on it.
Peter, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been amazing. It's really great reconnecting with you, and I'm so happy to have you here today.
Thanks, Max. I have to come down and maybe be part of one of your juries. I always enjoy hanging out. I remember being here. There's always a few bright stars in the department. You're one of those people, and I could just say, man, I wish I could hang out with that guy more. Through osmosis, we learn from each other. Yeah. And you're one of those people here at Cal State Long Beach. Makes a great difference. So thank you so much for having me.
Peter, you're welcome to come hang with me anytime.
Sounds good.
All right. I'm Max Beach. Keep asking questions.